Welcome everyone to a special unboxing. So today is a one-off Hellboy RPG Field Director unboxing. So what is this? This is a Kickstarter that John from House of Chaos has backed and said, would I like to unbox it? You never know, we might even play it. That would be pretty crazy, right? So both me and John are fans of RPGs. I've played Pathfinder, Dungeons & Dragons of different editions, Aliens. I had a quick bash at Star Wars, so has John. In fact, I used to be John's DM for quite a number of years as well, which is Dungeon Master, for those who don't know, which may be a different role than you think it is, or I've always known as Game Master. But this is for the Hellboy universe. So fans of the films and comics may recognise this symbol straight away, as it is part of the specialist team that Hellboy is part of. This is a symbol for Hellboy's specialist team, which he's a part of, that the word control possibly is a bit harsh, but they basically check out people with different abilities, supernatural entities, things like that. So Hellboy is now an RPG. It's also a board game. I have seen a few lovely miniatures for that. So let's take a look at this. This is quite a weight. It's quite a thick box, as you can see. There's nothing on the back, no writing. So it looks just like a chunky pizza box at the moment. But let's see what's inside. So John backed the Kickstarter for this RPG. Obviously, like most Kickstarters on the Kickstarter website, it has different levels. So I'll get rid of all the nice shiny things that are reflecting so you can't actually see what's inside. So I'll take the lid off the first lot of miniatures. Me and packaging. This is going to be great on camera, so I will just do it off camera. Okay, much swearing later, me wrestling, possibly a bit of a fight to the death with the packaging later. Me and packaging do not get on, we have a bit of a history, but still. We have non-shiny miniatures, so let's get into the main characters. Now if you've seen the original films, you may recognise Abe, obviously Hellboy himself, and presumably that is Rasputin from the original film, or the version of, and obviously that Hellboy's love interest. The models themselves look pretty cool, and it looks like, I haven't actually read any of the rules or anything as yet, we'll get through that in a second, because I'm literally opening this for the first time. Some looks like mutated frog people. And at the bottom here we have multiple bases with lots and lots and lots of rats. The proper little rat swarms. Looks pretty disgusting, actually, to be fair. But in a good way. So I will pick up some of these models. So the plastic, I noticed straight away, is quite a hard plastic. Not that you guys will be wanting to cut these up and convert them or anything like that, because the poses look brilliant. So I'll put a light on behind me so you can see what's going on. So yeah, like I said, the poses look brilliant. The detail is pretty decent as well. So if you're a fan of Hellboy, you will know he's got lots and lots of cracks on his big mighty fist, and the detail's shown up pretty well. But like I said, it's a hard plastic. So, you know, don't be afraid, you know, if you drop them or anything, they're not going to shatter. They're not like a light resin or anything like that. I would imagine they're probably a PVC hard plastic. The quality looks pretty good, and it looks very much like the Hellboy in the comics. Now, I was quite a big fan of the original couple of films with Ron Perlman. The David Harbour film even, not bad. He looks pretty mean as Hellboy, but I think the writing was a little bit off possibly. But that looks like Abe to me. You can see he's got gills on the side of his head. Some kind of spear. Yeah, it definitely looks like Abe. He's got fins on the back of his legs. And you can see the symbol on the back from the front of the box. So these models are pretty well detailed. I'll pick out one of the pudge face toad looking people. Chunky guys. It looks like some of them are wearing jackets. Some of them look like they're wearing just torn t-shirts and jeans. They're pretty messed up. And we'll have these tiny little ratty bases, if you can see, if the camera can focus. So they're pretty good. They would be wicked in several different RPG systems. But what immediately caught my eye, which should have been Hellboy, is the big beasties. So this guy looks like some kind of bucktooth Cthulhu. And this looks wicked. Some writhing tentacles, just like in the first Hellboy film. That is a wicked looking piece. And like I said, that also would look amazing in any other RPG. Imagine having that in Dungeons and Dragons. So with this game, it appears you have the standard Roll20 dice. By Roll20 dice, I mean if you ever play a Roll20 system, an RPG system, such as Dungeons and Dragons, you normally have your D6 for your 6-sided dice. There's D10s, D20s, D8s, another D10, percentile dice by the looks of it, D8, and the classic, the one you don't want to stand on, the D4. And they're not just any ordinary dice that we get for a roleplay system. They do have like archaic kind of symbols around the numbers. I will open up this pack. I'll leave that to John, so I end up losing the dice. And he will murder me. And this will be the last video you ever see, which might not be a bad shout for you guys, I suppose. But yeah, so standard like Roll20 dice, and they call it that because of the D20 there with 20 sides. So if you're new into RPG games, when we call it a D6, a D8, or a D10, things like that, it basically means the D's dice, and the number is the number of sides. So everyone has seen a D6 before, which is a regular 6-sided dice. Okay, in here we have, looks like a Hellboy poster, which looks pretty cool. Some of the big baddies he's faced over the years. And he has taken on some of the great mythical creatures in the past. On the other side of the poster, there is actually a timeline. So it didn't just start in 1944 here, where Rasputin attempts to summon a dragon that will bring the end of the world, and it actually turns out Hellboy pops out the portal, just like in the film. It actually starts further back. So at the beginning of the BPRD, which is the symbol in the front of the box, which stands for the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense here, and it actually started before Hellboy was found, but obviously as he joined, him and his massive fist have taken on several different enemies throughout time. And it's even here where we find Abe. So Abe is the aquatic creature that we've seen in the films. So in 1979, after being saved from an experimentation by Hellboy, Abe Sapien begins work on unofficial field agent for the BPRD. It's pretty cool. So it doesn't just talk about as if it was real. Of course it's real, Ross. You know, what happens like when Hellboy gets discovered, when he defeats certain enemies. It actually says which books they are in as well. But yeah, I haven't read hardly any of the Hellboy comics. I probably should. I have seen a bit of the artwork online. It looks pretty cool. I really did enjoy, like I said, the first film. And for me, it wasn't Rasputin that was the great bad guy of the film. It was the guy who was had a clockwork piece that wound up his heart because it was just dust inside instead of blood. Some kind of Nazi assassin, and he just looks so badass. But yeah, wasn't expecting that. I saw the poster and I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. Flipped it over, and it's really nice to see that there is a timeline for this game as well, and for Hellboy himself. So they didn't just make a series of comics willy-nilly, or a couple of films. They actually have put some effort into it and some backstory. So this, like most role-playing systems, when you do have your game master or your dungeon master, you will have something they call the DM screen, which is a chunky piece of cardboard generally that you hide behind and fudge your dice rolls and try to kill your team. No, I'm joking. Sometimes you obviously roll some dice in secret. You don't want the team to know what's going on, sometimes behind closed doors. But generally speaking, you have some quick fire rules inside. So, things to find and people to meet, I think that's pretty good. So there's 20 examples there. If you just want, if you're winging it off the fly, you want to find something that people might find interesting straight off the bat. I normally might make little notes and little jotters and little pads and things like that, or off the side of my page when I'm prepping for the next session, because you never know where the party's going to go. They always like to throw a red herring in there, and that's why I like role play systems, because if you pigeonhole somebody, the story's never fun. You want to make it look like they're making the decisions and they're continuing their story. You're just the narrator, but it's their story after all. So it's nice that they have an example of 20 things there. You have some things to punch in the face, so some stats for some generic bad guys, from your zombies to your Nazi minions, frog swarm, which I'm assuming those were the horrible looking frog people, miniatures that came in the front. Things to keep handy, so some nice rules there. So like charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned. Yeah, I really like that. That's quite nice. So it's always nice to have a bit of artwork with it as well. Mainly it's hide behind to hide your notes so they don't know what's coming up around the corner, what map is around the corner in the darkness. But I like that. It's a nice finish to it as well. It's quite satiny, quite silky. The classic Hellboy on the front there. So yeah, quick fire rules, quick reference guide there inside of the screen. And it looks like finally we have the main book itself. Online there is copies of the character sheets, but they have thrown a few character sheets in there as well. So character sheets, like any other RPG system, will have your name on the front and your basic stats. And it looks like you've got your weapons on the front as well. And then when it comes to the back, you have your background. It even says CV, which is pretty good. You don't normally get that in Dungeons and Dragons. Nobody really applies for the job. You are the fighter, you are the barbarian or something like that. But that's pretty nice. Additional equipment, rituals known. That's pretty nice. So yes, there is quite a few there, just in case characters get killed off. But they are online as well to be printed off. So this is the main rulebook itself. Now it comes with a sleeve, so I'll do my best to slide it off gently. A bit of text. Oh wow, that is nice. That's lovely. So I'm not sure if it's real leather, but it feels pretty leathery to me. It's made to feel old. and you possibly can or cannot tell. The symbol for the bureau is just there, and it's embossed. That feels really, really nice. So a nice leathery feeling book. Oh, it smells new too. Right. So obviously Dark Horse Comics originally made Hellboy. I will zoom in a little bit so you can see some of the detail. Now Mantic made the miniatures, and Red Scar made the rules. So inside the front, obviously you're expecting a table of contents, but on the right hand side there is a name that's familiar to both me and John, and the graphic design, Doug Rowe. So I have seen his artwork before in the past at events in the Plymouth area. He's a fantastic artist. I've seen posters for several films he's done, from Indiana Jones to Back to the Future. In my opinion, they do not look like drawings. They look like photographs. The guy is so talented. Hi Mark, if you're watching this, having your name in a book like this must be a big deal. It's fantastic. So we'll get into the contents now. Joining the BPRD. So your usual character creation, like in most RPGs, tells you about your origins, your different set of skills, things like that. So in Dungeons and Dragons terms, you have your species, and then you have like, are you a fighter, a bard, barbarian, things like that. Then we have your roles, customization, equipment, the basic mechanics, backup agents, I'm assuming that's NPCs, so non-player characters, so characters that be running around in the background, mostly you can interact with. So they're still characters you can interact with, but they're not ones you normally control. So it talks about your combat, Doom, which I have no idea what that is, but we'll get to that in a bit. It sounds amazing. Building a file case, demonology, ghost hunting, things like that. Rituals, magics, agents, and enemies. Wow, this is going to be great. So, straight away inside we have the background, which is obviously more in depth than just a timeline. So, it does say in the Heaven and Hell section, so this is a Lovecraft-inspired universe. And it really is. So if you have seen the first film, anything with tentacles, generally quite Lovecraftian. So it's quite dark, it's quite gothic-y, some horror elements to it as well. Not very similar to many other genres other than Lovecraftian. So obviously this is set in fairly modern day, but I'm assuming it could be easily adapted for a 1900 game, which is kind of the era that most of the Lovecraftian stuff is set in. So origins selection. So human, who knew? So it gives you name samples, traits, languages, diversity. They also have a rule called do or die. You can re-roll a failed saving throw or an attack roll, but you must apply the new result. Once you've used this feature, you must return to base before you can use it again. So it's basically a one-off per mission. I guess it shows the jack of all trades, kind of master of none of humans. You know, they go to most places in the planet. They dip the toe in most things. Okay, we have a species called the Cursed. So one of the more unique occupational hazards while working for the BPRD is that a curse or legend will all turn out to be real. some individuals seek out such curses, taking the power granted by them in exchange for any price it offers. Ooh, variety of curses. Okay. Individuals that find themselves under the skin crawling Wendigo curse, and those who often find themselves with bloodthirst or acting as a vessel for demonic forces. So I'm assuming it's pretty much like Hellboy's better half, who can burst into flames, things like that. So you're resistant to poison damage and gain advantage on all saves against being poisoned. You have different classifications of being cursed. So you have like hollow, vampire, demon, or servant. So I'm assuming that's kind of like a vessel. That's pretty cool. So hollow, because I would imagine most of us know what a vampire or a demon is. So hollow in this game, perhaps you were cursed, was via a cursed object you did not notice when you stepped on it. Or maybe you stared into the abyss, something stared back at you. Your curse has led you into surviving more than you care to mention. Even though you notice that an experience has left you incredibly hollow, you've become hardened to care much as once was. Okay. So the world feels increasingly like the colour has been drained out of it. So not literally hollow. But hey ho, increase your dexterity score by 1. Don't have time to bleed. As part of taking time, you can add your proficiency bonus to the hit point regeneration with each dice roll. Hardened your heart. As a bonus action, you gain resistance to all non-magical damage. Okay, so you're not literally hollow. I guess you just don't care so much, and that is a curse in this game, which will actually give you a physical boon. Huh, who knew? Okay, so then you have psychics as an origin, and then you have your different classifications. So you can have medium, telekinesis, pyrotechnic. That's pretty cool. So you've got your lesser manifestations. Become a ghost. That could be pretty cool. Presumably you have to die first. So increase your intelligence by 2. Ectoplasm uses. Unless otherwise stated, you use the following abilities: consume 1 hit dice or 1 point of intrigue. Eyes of the dead, puppeteer. Okay, you can expend your reaction to cause a creature that has been reduced to 0 hit points to immediately move up to half its movement speed and make a single attack. And that's pretty dark. So yeah, possess people. Okay, like dead people and make them do your bidding. Eyes of the dead. What does that do? You can connect. You can connect to the ectoplasmic residue of a corpse up to 100 feet away, allowing you to create a projection of yourself in its vicinity. That's pretty dark. Classifications of ghosts. When you suffer a critical hit, you suffer an additional point of damage at the end of your turn. Okay. So that's a bane, so that's a bad thing, I guess. Not a boon, it's a bane. Okay. Okay, and then you have Fae. So I'm assuming it's kind of like, not necessarily elves, but more like leprechauns, things like that. Pranksters, you have incredibly harsh reactions to iron. So like if a horseshoe touches you, it burns, things like that. Okay, that's pretty cool. So you increase your wisdom score by 2. Eternal youth, which is pretty nice. A different Fae creatures. So that's a half pig creature. Okay, so then you have your life before the BPRD. So you have all your different professions and stuff like that in your backgrounds before you turned up. Pretty cool. That's a nice picture, I like that. So how were you recruited? Wrong time, right place. Were you recommended? Were you discovered? I suppose if you're a creature, things like that could have been discovered and decided to work for them rather than probably getting destroyed. Depends on your alignment, I guess. Speaking of which, you have your drive, which are obviously your alignments. Then you have your languages. Anything from Hindi, ancient Greek, French, Spanish, obviously English. Okay. Field agents that you can use. These are your NPCs. So if it's a Star Trek, that'll be your red shirts that you send off to die. I mean the people who are valid members of the team who will assist you. Okay, so field training. Here's your different roles and responsibilities. Okay, so are you the science guy, the religious guy? The pages feel really nice as well. There's quite a decent thickness to these books. Each page doesn't feel flimsy. And I do like the artwork as well. Okay, so you have experimental engineer. That's pretty cool. So you can rebuild stuff. Even make things worse than it was when you're trying to repair it. By the looks of it, that's pretty nice. So obviously, things don't always go correctly. Misfire tables. Okay. Nice little ribbon there so you can put in the page. Security. Internal affairs. Fire team director. So one of his abilities would be now, as an action, nominate up to 3 allies within 15 feet that can hear you. They may immediately use a reaction to make a single attack. That's pretty cool. You're literally making them do things. Emergency technician can use duct tape. You are able to repair equipment even when it would have been easier to replace it. Sounds pretty good to me. This is pretty cool. So, personal development. So you can have the ability to be a people person, for example. Self-sufficient. So for example, the self-sufficient would give you, you can dodge and disengage as a bonus action. So we can get into this for days, I think. Talking about the different customizations of your characters, their backgrounds. Like their traits, like are they people, persons, your different feats and abilities, your equipment. So carrying a tiny item costs 0 slots, small is 1 slot, medium is 2 slots, large is 4 slots, huge are 8 slots. So what kind of things can we have? Medical kits, trackers, ballistic vests, radios. Let's see if we can get to some weapons, because I'm sure Hellboy would love some weapons. Bowie knife, machete, nightstick, sword, cane. That's pretty cool. And like most role-playing games, you have the weapon type, size, damage, properties. So like any special rules. Like the rifle, you can use the rifle butt in melee as well, or pistol whip. Okay. Relics. You can have iron shoes. Heavy, cumbersome, and impractical for swimming. These shoes can at least take your places as long as you aren't Fey. Shoes can take you to your places, but why would you want iron shoes? Let's have a look. While wearing iron shoes, your speed is increased by 10 feet. I'm not entirely sure that works, but hey ho, those are the rules. You're obviously just not very good at swimming and things like that, so it can make you go faster. Destruction, you ignore difficult terrain and double your movement speed for 1 round and dash as a bonus action and gain +5 to melee damage for 5 rounds. Okay, that's random. Lucky charm table. One of the lucky charms can be sunglasses. See, shamrocks, rabbit's foots, horseshoes, I understand. Sunglasses? Okay. You have ancient spears. I must have slipped a page when talking about weaponry. Because though that's close combat. There we go, I did skip a page. So, what can you have as range weapons? Spear gun, harpoon, flamethrower, thumper, shotgun, Samaritan, and revolver. That's pretty cool. Crossbow, throwing knives, tranquilizer guns. Yeah. So the thumper is the gun that Hellboy uses. It fires small grenades. As you do, that's pretty cool. So let's have an example of a flamethrower, for example. It's a large weapon. It's 3d6 fire damage. Range line 5 feet wide, 6 feet, 30 feet long. Slow to reload, two-handed. Make 1 attack roll for each creature in range. That's pretty cool. Just don't obviously fire it when you have your team members in the way. Okay, so that's equipment. Next we get into the basics. So like most role-playing games, you have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Probably all know what those things do. Well, strength possibly anyway, dexterity more than likely, constitution you can probably guess, but wisdom, your wisdom score relates to your perceptiveness, insight, and judgment of facts. There you go, now you know. Okay, so fast-paced travel, slow-paced travel, medium-paced travel. For aircraft, vehicles, and on foot. That's pretty cool. Sometimes in roleplay books, like I said, I've played several different editions of like Dungeons and Dragons. Finding things like that is quite hard to find in the book. So when you're working out how far on the map the place is, how many hours traveling are you doing, this is actually pretty clear. I like that. Drowning, suffocating, light, vision, food and water. So what you need to do to survive, or just, well, yeah, I was going to say drowning. That's not good. That would be survival. Seeing where you need to go, and obviously eating stuff, drinking stuff. If your character does at all do that, I would imagine most characters would. Okay, so backup agents. How combat works. So the initiative combat. It looks like this plays out like most roleplay games. It seems to be pretty straightforward. Nice, clear. But sometimes you can make reactions. And there is 3 interactions as well. So drawing or placing a melee weapon, open or closing a door, picking up a dropped weapon, eat a pancake, apparently, it even states there. Just a little bit off camera, there we go. Put your ear to a door, kick a small stone. Things that you would expect. Specifically a pancake though, okay. Grappling, 2 weapon fighting, range attacks. So a few roleplay games, they get different rules for dropping below 0 HP, which is your hit points, which is your health. So if you reduce to 0 hit points, you gain the unconscious condition and must beginning making death saving throws. Roll a single d20 on your turn. On a roll of 10 or higher, mark a success in your death save. On a roll of 9 or lower, mark a failure. Additionally, an injury is suffered if 1 is rolled. So it gets even worse. While 20 results in 2 successes. So if you roll a 20, that's classed as 2 successes. Gaining 3 failures before 3 successes means death. So that's pretty straightforward, that's fairly clear. Not too similar to a few games that I've played. But I like the way they've laid it out. So it's a simple paragraph, that is not hard. Sometimes you'll find in RPGs that will be written on 3 pages and you've just baffled yourself. But that's pretty straightforward. That makes a lot of sense. Restrained, stunned, unconscious, prone, poisoned, petrified. Ooh, some of these conditions are pretty nasty. How you can heal as well. So unless it results in death, damage isn't permanent. Rest and medical attention can both restore hit points. Yeah, death's fairly permanent normally, but obviously in roleplay games there are ways around that. People can be brought back from the dead. When you're receiving healing of any kind, hit points, HP, regained are added to your current hit points. Your hit points cannot exceed your hit points maximum. So any remaining hit points obviously are lost. That's pretty straightforward. Right. Don't like the sound of doom. I did mention that in the opening. Ingenuity and doom. Doom does not sound good. So, it's good fortune and bad fortune. So, from what I can gather, rolling a 1 or a 20. So a crit fail or a crit successes. So on a roll of 20, outside of combat, if the D10 roll does not generate doom or ingenuity, the agent receives 1 point of ingenuity. If an agent rolls 1 on a 20 and does not generate ingenuity or doom, on a roll of a D10, they gain 1 point of doom instead. So the points of doom can be used for. Okay, so it's not all bad. Common doom spends. So spawn a frog swarm or evil turkey in the next room. Okay. Improve an enemy's attack roll by 1d6. Cause a minion level monster at 0 hit points to awaken with 1 hit point. So it's not all bad. It's not all bad. But I suppose the DM can save it up. But I guess they would do it to make the story more interesting. Because sometimes the party, that sounds like you really do want to kill them. roll incredibly well and you roll incredibly badly, so you can always fudge the dice roll, I guess. But the idea, like in any roleplay game, is to make it seem challenging and realistic, and the fear of death will be there, but not literally death around every corner. It's nearly impossible, and you are trying to kill him off. Just make it look like you are, but without actually doing it. Keep that story going, basically. So examples on running the game: building a case file, case difficulty. So a case file obviously is a mission. Case difficulty is how hard it is, I guess, for the party. Some examples of your non-player characters, your NPCs. Ghost hunting. Examples of adventuring hooks. Your demons, things like that. And examples of stories that you can use. So historical use table, you could have a graveyard or a place of worship, which is now use of hunting grounds. A taboo site or ruins. It's pretty good that you can have little examples of places, creatures, missions. So off the fly, if they decide to go left and you wanted them to go right, at least you can make something up on the spot. Thin places. That's quite interesting. So thin places are a location where a pair of dimensions are very close in proximity. So two dimensions you could cross through easily without an obvious portal. That's pretty good. Portal dimensions, alternative dimensions, demon dimensions. So basically, if you've ever seen Hellboy, weird stuff. Weird places of power, rituals. Like if you ever get an enemy with power, what do they want? More power. So obviously you're going to try summoning demons, end of the world kind of stuff. I do like the occasional little funny note from personnel. So BPRD, insurance and employment protection does not include travel to other dimensions. Yes. Basically, you could be expendable because the government doesn't know you exist, so why not, right? So I do like little fun little notes like that. It's pretty cool. Different rituals, pretty cool. Hallucination, invisibility, read memories. So what spell level basically these things are, what you need to do to cast them, how long it takes to cast them, things like that. Weapon blessing. Wonder why it was so high. Level 10. I thought that was quite a high level to bless a weapon. It lasts for a week. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Project Ragnarok. Nazi weird science. Well, of course there is. Why wouldn't there be? Death machines, trying to take over the world, demons from other dimensions. Basically, the first Hellboy film. I know I keep mentioning it, but it is worth a watch if you've never seen it. Especially if you want to play this game. Obviously, you don't have to follow the films. They give you a load of enemies. For example, apes, doesn't sound very scary. Killer birds, brown bears, sharks, giant squid. Doesn't sound too bad, right? No? No? Okay. How about some demons? So, brutal demon, cunning demon, Oni, changeling, black dogs. So these demons, how bad could they possibly be? So it's strength 16, dexterity 17, con 18. So basically anything that's 10 is like an average normal person. So obviously straight away above average. Deadly touch. At the start of each of its turns, the demon deals 2d6 fire damage to any creature within 5 feet of it. A creature grappled or touching the demon takes an additional 1d6 fire damage. So yeah, not so easy as like sharks and apes and things like that. Of course you have your undead, vampire, classic things like that. You have soldiers, German soldiers, Nazi. Of course there is the classic case files of Lobster Johnson, Liz Sherman. Well, obviously you know who Liz is if you've seen the films, so the love interest. Jonathan Cross, so he was in the second film. And of course you got your main character Hellboy. So like I said, your basic stats are 10 if you're just an average normal Joe. Hellboy, strength is 25. Dexterity is 20, so he is a little bit more nimble than you think he's going to be. Intelligence is 13, wisdom is 13. That's pretty cool. I wouldn't mind rolling up my own character with my own background and my own abilities and see how I get on. But then again, it is pretty cool to play Hellboy, the man, the myth, the legend. So this one here, actually, at the beginning of the book, does tell you of an example mission. So, introduction for the GM, so for the game master, so you can run this. Jungles of the Mind. Okay, so it tells you what it's all about. Like the mission briefing. What you tell your team. And that's obviously a fixed adventure. So, I mean, you could always start with this, and then if your characters want to go off in another direction, you can do. But with something like this, yes, it's an example, but it is a bit more linear than if you set up your own campaign. It also tells you what happens if you fail. Generally death, I would imagine. But it's not necessarily death to you. It could be the end of the actual world, things like that. It also tells you what happens if you succeed. So if you succeed, in this particular case, the agents will have an amazing tale to tell the debrief panel should they succeed and get back to the cave and dive back. With a tale that can only be verified by the SBS divers. The Baronet will have a brandy ready as soon as he debriefs the agents. Alias on return trips. The island has vanished and since been replaced by tunnels that are even more eerie. Cool. So it does state here about Hellboy, the RPG game is a complete and comprehensive system by its own right. As long as you have dice, paper and pencils, yada yada yada. Many players, however, like to use maps and figures of their own, which is fine. Inside the box, although there's a number of expansions available for Hellboy, this appendix refers to the components from the base set. Deck of Doom. So GMs can opt to include the Deck of Doom. So there's always an additional rule set. You don't have to use it to add a bit of additional variety to the Doom spends available. I did think they were massively strong, but still. First, the GM could build a reduced deck of Doom using the following cards: Ancient Cursed, Beady Eyes, Otherworldly Mist, yada yada yada. Anytime Doom is generated on a dice roll, the GM can forego gaining the point of Doom and opt to draw a card instead. Right, so what are these cards? So for example, we could have Ancient Curse to determine an agent randomly and place this card on their character sheet. The next time the agent generates Intrigue. Next time the agent generates Ingenuity, they instead generate 2 Doom. That's pretty nasty. But yeah, it looks like a really good game set. Deck of Doom table. Ugh. So, I mean, it's additional rule set. You don't have to use it, but it could really mess stuff up. I suppose it depends how smoothly the game runs, depends how well people roll. Hellboy timelines, explained a little bit more than it is on the poster. And then you have your index. Ooh la la. Yeah, and once again, the timeline, like on the poster, just in case you do lose it, or you want to put the poster up, I guess. But yeah, it's a lovely feeling book. I really do like the leather book. I'm not weirding out now, it's okay. But yeah, the rules seem pretty straightforward, pretty basic game mechanics like they do in most modern Roll20 games. And I do like the builder, how you can build your species as it was, with a little bit of background, the reason why you signed up, you know, where you were from before, and it'd be interesting to play the game, see how the games master runs it, what kind of weird and wonderful things you could do. You could either have one massive campaign, I guess, like the big bad at the end, like in the films, or a series of small things like just investigate a haunted house. That'd be good, I suppose, to run a level 1 kind of scenario, like investigate a haunted house, and see how it goes. If not, this is a great collector's edition. It'd be nice to pick up, like the Hellboy, paint Hellboy up, look great on a shelf, even if you decide not to use it. The book looks fantastic. The artwork's obviously brilliant. So it's a wonderful collector's piece, even if you decide never to run an RPG Hellboy yourself. And a few of the monsters you could definitely use in other RPG games as well. So the frog people look quite generic, the rats, the big tentacle thing, and the Cthulhu beast as well. And who doesn't want a Hellboy miniature to paint up? I mean, he does look really, really cool. So yeah, I am looking forward to possibly playing this one day. I have run a few games myself, but if John wanted to run one, go for it, John. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I know it's not the kind of thing that we do in unboxing for RPG systems. I am quite tempted to start up a Dungeons & Dragons again. I have, like I said, DM'd a few and possibly even record it. But they are very long-winded and possibly not for younger viewers because the content does get a bit adult in nature. Not necessarily gameplay, but just the random chat between combats and situations. Yeah, I think it says a lot more about my friends than anything else. But thank you very much for watching this. Hope you enjoyed this. And please subscribe for some more great content. Thank you very much, everyone. Cheers.